Have you guys heard about the pastor who dismembered a 16-year-old boy? On June 5th, 1994, a dismembered body was found behind a dumpster in a gas station in Lake City. Police found remains of a torso that belonged to a boy whose hands, legs, and head were missing. The case went cold for 20 years, but on May 2014, it reappeared on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website. And that's when Daisy Laster came forward and told investigators that the individual may be her twin brother, Fred Laster, who went missing 20 years ago. Further investigation was done, and with the use of DNA, investigators were able to put 65-year-old Ronnie Hyde in the same location where Fred's body was found. At the time, 38-year-old Ronnie met 16-year-old Fred through the church. Family members told investigators that now that they think back, Ronnie's behavior was very weird at the time because he was constantly trying to spend one-on-one time with the young boys from the church, especially Fred. A motive was never clear, but 27 years later, Ronnie was charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison.
Let's talk about what happened to 23-year-old Veronica Reyes Diaz. Veronica was born on June 7, 1996 and lived in Tampa, Florida. Her parents are Fidencio Minjares and Tina Cortez, and she also had two sisters and a brother. Veronica was extremely close to her family. She absolutely adored her siblings, and she had a really great relationship with her parents. Her family describes her as being very loud and outspoken, but in a good way. She wasn't afraid to say what's on her mind, and she could hold a conversation with pretty much anyone. As Veronica got older, she went through a couple of rocky relationships. She ended up getting pregnant and had two beautiful little boys. She didn't continue to have a relationship with the father of her children, but she absolutely loved being a mother. On December 8, 2018, Veronica married the love of her life, Francisco Reyes. Soon after they got married, Veronica got pregnant with another little boy. Her family was growing, and now she was living at the Valrico Hills mobile home community near Dover, Florida with her three kids and Francisco. Francisco worked in construction, and Veronica worked at a Taco Bell. However, after the birth of her third son, Francisco told her that she could quit her job and be a stay-at-home mom. However, Veronica really wanted to keep her job at Taco Bell. She told Francisco that she didn't want to quit, but he reassured her that being a stay-at-home mom would be the best thing to do for her children, so that's what Veronica did. Veronica was an amazing wife. She would cook for Francisco and make sure he had a packed lunch to take to work every single day. She would clean his clothes, clean the house, and take care of three young children. So on Friday, January 17, 2020, Veronica made plans with her friend Mariah to go out later that night. She was always home taking care of three children, so she really needed this night to just go out and have some fun. Now, Francisco was not too happy about this. He didn't like it when Veronica would leave, so he tried to convince her to stay home and cancel on her friend. But Veronica stood her ground and told him she was going out no matter what. So later that night, Mariah stops by to pick up Veronica and her two oldest kids to head out. Veronica's sister was actually going to babysit the two older kids while the youngest stayed home with Francisco. They dropped the kids off and then headed over to Chili's to start their night. At the Chili's, they were having an amazing time. Veronica was really enjoying her night out without children and just hanging out with her friend. However, after a while of being out, Veronica's phone began to blow up with messages from Francisco. He was sending her messages, asking her where she was, what she was doing, and telling her she needed to come home now. Along with these messages, he was also calling her non-stop and sounded very mad over the phone. At around 12:30 a.m., the girls left Chili's and headed home. At around 1 a.m. on Saturday, January 18th, Mariah drops Veronica off at her house and then drives away. Okay, part 2 should be up now. This is part 2 on what happened to Veronica Reyes Diaz. So after Veronica gets dropped off at her house, she gets inside her red SUV and heads over to her sister's house to pick up the kids. She gets there at around 1:10 in the morning, and her sister says that Veronica looked completely normal. She looked very happy and was excited to pick up the kids. So at around 1:45 in the morning, Veronica and the children arrive back to the house. They walk back into the house, and Veronica tucks her children into bed. Later that morning at around 6:30 a.m., Francisco wakes up and notices that Veronica isn't lying next to him in bed. So he gets up and checks the rest of the house, but Veronica is nowhere to be found. He wakes up the oldest boy and asks him if he has seen his mom, and the boy says that after mommy tucked him into bed, he heard her go outside. So Francisco goes outside and sees that the family's SUV is parked with the passenger door open. He thought this was weird because if Veronica did go visit a friend or family that morning, she would have taken her car. Also, why would the door be left open? So he checks inside the car, and that's when he finds Veronica's keys, her purse, wallet, cash, and the shirt she was wearing the night before.
Yo creo que le ha pasado algo. Encontramos su camisa aquí, esta fue la que llevaba cuando salió de la casa, pero no entiendo por qué está aquí. También su cartera está aquí, su identificación está aquí. Dejó todas las llaves del carro, las...
So Francisco finds all of these belongings and he doesn't really get that concerned. Instead of telling anyone that his wife is missing and that he found her belongings, he decides to go fishing. He went fishing from around 10:30 that morning to midnight. It wasn't until the following day on January 19th at around 3:30 p.m. that Veronica's father Fidencio received a text message from Francisco asking him if he had seen Veronica. Fidencio's like, no, I haven't seen Veronica, and that's when Francisco tells him everything that happened the day before. The family goes to the Hillsborough Police Department and they report Veronica as missing. The family conducted multiple search parties, but to this day in 2022, Veronica has still not been found. The family does believe that Francisco is a little bit suspicious. He claims that this is the shirt Veronica was wearing the night she went out. But Veronica's sister, Anne Mariah, the friend she went with, says that this is not the shirt she was wearing. They say that Veronica was wearing a white and gray shirt. So why is Francisco telling everyone that Veronica was wearing this flowered shirt when that's not true? They also tracked Veronica's cell phone and it was pinging in the area around the house. Then Francisco was telling the police that Veronica has a history of leaving, but that's not true. 7 months after Veronica disappeared, a forensics team went to the house, but at this point, everything had been changed. There was brand new furniture and it had been freshly painted. Okay, there's just so much information on this case, so I'm going to have to do a part 3. Okay, this is the final part on what happened to Veronica Reyes Diaz. So like I said, 7 months after she disappeared, a forensic team finally went to investigate the house, but at this point there was new furniture, new paintings, everything had been changed. So if a crime had occurred at this home, everything would have been cleaned up and gone by now. Veronica's family also discovered that Francisco had a lot of infidelity. He had lots of girlfriends and sometimes wouldn't come home because he was out with other girls. Apparently Veronica knew about this and was getting tired of it. She was doing everything she could to make the marriage work, but it was just getting too hard. Veronica's mother, Tina, did an interview on the Vanish podcast, and she says that on Saturday, January 18th, the morning Francisco discovered Veronica was missing, they found surveillance footage that caught Francisco in his truck driving to the fishing spot. On his way there, he had 2 rolled carpets like the ones in this corner in the back of his pickup truck. One carpet was nicely rolled tight like this one, and the other carpet looked like it had been rolled by hand. When he came back from the fishing trip, the nicely rolled carpet was still in his car, but this carpet, the one that was rolled by hand, was no longer there. This makes some family members believe that Veronica could have been inside this hand-rolled carpet and that when he went fishing, he threw her into the water. Now, there's no proof that Francisco was involved in Veronica's disappearance. This is just what some of the family members believe, and to this day, Francisco has never been named an official suspect. Now, there is another theory that some people believe. 3 weeks after Veronica disappeared, 23-year-old Kaya Taylor went missing from Plant City, Florida, which is only 15 minutes away from where Veronica lived. Kaya's black Toyota was found abandoned on railroad tracks with the engine still running. Her cell phone and debit card were found inside. Some people believe this is similar to how Veronica's car was found, and just the fact that they were only 15 minutes apart makes it seem as if it could be connected. Veronica and Kaya's family say that they did not know each other, but it could be possible, so anytime Fidencio goes out looking for Veronica, he's also looking for Kaya. And that's pretty much it, you guys. Veronica is still missing and she needs to be found. Her babies need to know what happened to their mom, and this is just so unfair. I really hope that she is found soon and the family can have some type of closure.
And you guys will come in thinking I'm a loony because you don't hear me. Here's the thing. I'm not the one with the donut fetish. Give a cop a donut and he'll want a coffee to go with it. Give a mouse a cookie and he'll want a glass of milk. Give a moose a muffin and he'll want something else. But here's my favorite one. What is it when a cop car is towed by a tow truck? Pulled pork.
When the officers don't respond,
Her mom is in fact doing drugs. You are to release her to me. Tell him to release Gavin. And Ellie, thank you. And I know I'm being recorded. You can keep that on there. Unless you're a nice cop, then I take it back. But if you're one of those two-timing, donut-eating piece of crap that don't like rules, a high school bully with a badge, I'm sorry, buddy, but I eat high school bullies.